Okay, hello. Welcome to the third installment of the yet to be titled Craig Pollock podcast, coming to you from a trailer out in the middle of nowhere. Tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, alcohol, and I have an expert here, my cousin Tara, who I will let her introduce herself and let her tell you all a little bit about herself because if I try to do it, I'm definitely going to leave things out and I don't want to do that because she has a very impressive resume. So Tara, take it away.
Hi, I'm Craig's cousin, like you said. Craig, we've been talking about this for a long time, and I didn't know you had actually gotten started with the podcast, and I'm so proud. Like I want to pinch your cheeks, like you're such a bench. um, let's see. Yes, I suppose I could be called an alcohol expert. I'm a journalist by day, superhuman all the time. Um, I am the beer and spirits contributor to Forbes. I write about beer a lot. I write about spirits a lot. I dabble in wine, but as little as possible. So let's see, I've got a book coming out in September that is the first book to exclusively document the history of women in beer. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little later. Let's see, I'm a former TV news reporter, and I've hosted beer shows, broadcast TV beer shows. I've had a lot of columns about alcohol. Women in beer in particular is my specialty. I teach an intro to beer class for credit in college. This is what these kids get to do now.
Yeah, we used to just
Yeah,
drink for fun. Now you get graded on it.
I know. And actually, they all come in thinking it's going to be an easy A. A lot of them get A's because it's not hard to get an A, but like some of them fail. Some of them are like, what the hell? Like, this is an elective. I'm like, but you're getting a credit for it and you have me as an instructor. So do your
Yeah,
fucking work.
right.
Right.
Yeah,
Anyway, so
you also used to have a group that would travel around to like the various trade shows and whatnot, promoting women in beer.
yeah, so I started New Jersey's first um, educational beer group for women. It was called Beer for Babes. It's on hiatus now.
Well, so
If
is
anyone
everything
wants,
else because of the pandemic. So let's
that
be
is,
honest, nothing's really not on hiatus.
I'm totally gonna blame it on the pandemic. Thank
Yeah.
you, Craig. You just gave me a great excuse. Yeah. So I tried to price everything as like low as possible, and in retrospect, this is like totally inside baseball. But in retrospect, I should have maybe charged a little more and like paid volunteers and stuff. Anyway, we did a lot of awesome things, got a lot of women connected who are interested in beer. And yeah, if anyone
Okay.
wants to take it over, let me
Cool. So
know.
since you've brought up all the references to women in beer, it actually makes me think of something that I was thinking about last night when watching TV because really that's all I do now is work and watch TV because there's
Okay,
nowhere to go. But I was
sure.
thinking about the different cultures, especially when it comes to food and beverage, and how let's say mainstream media, television, Hollywood, whatever you want to call it, actually embraces different cultures but still like stigmatizes others. That what I mean by that is like I was watching Frasier last night of all shows, and it got
I
me
love
thinking.
Frasier.
Yeah, it got me thinking. Like, what's the hangout in that show as well as Friends? Is a coffee house. So the coffee culture, if you will, has been widely embraced by
Mhm.
Hollywood. Then I was also thinking about other shows where, and this is not to sound sexist or anything. This is just what I see as being a fact is shows that mostly feature prominent female leads always revolve around the wine culture. Like they all have to have a bottle of Merlot or a rosé or something
True.
involved in almost any scene. But yet beer is still to me stigmatized as the working man's drink. There's this
Mm.
whole beer culture that you basically live amongst, that you report on, that you're a major force in. But yet, when people think of beer, they're still thinking, the construction worker, whatnot, at the end of the day, going to the bar, having a Bud or a Coors or whatnot. after slinging a hammer and all that. But it goes so much deeper than that, and there hasn't been much romanticizing or embracing of women in beer in Hollywood and mainstream media culture. What how do you feel about that, and what steps have you taken to like bring beer to more of a prominent role, as opposed to having people just think of it as, that drink that, the guys drink when they're sitting around scratching themselves and watching football?
Um, that's an incredible question. And there's so many different ways I could, so many places I could start with that. And I'm sort of like flipping through my mental files to think about where it makes sense to start. Yes, all of that is true. Beer is still completely male dominated. Women are increasing in our numbers as drinking. I mean, the last thing I saw was that women are like 35% of people who are defined as regular craft drinkers, which is really like they've had 4 craft beers in the past year. I'm exaggerating, but not by much. And more women are working as brewers, working in all facets of the industry. It's still the exception rather than the rule. What I show in my book and what I'm seeing more of in the like beverage media, Wine Enthusiast is a good example. They just put out a great article that really gets into the history of women in beer, and what the vast majority of people, even beer drinkers, don't know is that women have been the primary brewers throughout most of history. And we can come back and like talk more in detail about that later.
Okay.
But it's to be honest with you, it really is just patriarchy as usual that has given us this mindset, because like I said, women are historically the brewers. And I'm intrigued that you took it a step further. You weren't just like, well, it's a dude's drink, how it's presented is still as a dude's drink. You were also like, it's like the working man dude's drink.
Well, that's the thing. Even in the advertisements for beer, when you see the women, they're all bikinied up and, dancing around, oil dancing. And let's be honest, who does that cater to? Who does that brand of advertising cater to? Men. But yet, as you said, with women being primarily more the brewers and all that, not that I personally would want to see this, but why aren't there commercials of guys, washing cars with and hosing each other down in short shorts? I mean, is that something that you as a woman would want to see and would make you want to buy a certain beer over another if that's their advertising campaign?
No, and again, I'm torn between like making a joke about the fact that there are a lot of hot male brewers and the fact that there are also a lot of not hot male brewers.
Well, look, if I've always said that beer was, even though there's this whole culture, especially with craft beers, beer to me was always the drink that guys that look like me used to get women in bed. I
Oh,
mean,
like the beer goggle theory.
like exactly, which I know is a sexist and misogynist thing to say, but
it's also
we're talking what? Yeah, but we're talking real world here.
It's also, yes, we are totally in a different world. And I'm not castigating you actually, because
no, and I'm not saying that I do that, but as kids, we all did get drunk and did do a lot of things that now we look back on, especially in the climate we're in now with Me Too, and we're not necessarily proud of them, but on the same token, it wasn't our intention to do the things we did, and that's why you always say, well, he was drunk or she was drunk, so I mean, I don't really know. I kind of went off the rails on this where I'm going with it, but
no, what you're saying is like all very relevant. It's all related, right? So getting back a little bit, beer wasn't considered a male drink. Beer wasn't sort of genderized, and it wasn't a working class drink until the ancient Greeks. And
Okay.
the ancient Greeks were these like really snooty people. That's where male society really sort of took hold more than in the past, and women had like so little place in ancient Greek culture, and that is also where we as humans transitioned into really favoring wine, and it got more exaggerated in Roman times. And
So
so
wait, so
before
you're
that,
saying that Jesus may have actually turned water into beer and not wine, but because wine
actually, that
has
is
a
exactly, I didn't
okay.
say that, but yes, that is,
See, I'm not
that's
afraid to say
exact.
those things because what's the
No,
worst
no,
somebody's
no,
gonna do? Come and punch me in the face? Yeah, but I
it's,
mean, I think
it's
religion
true.
also plays into the elevation of wine as the elitist drink as opposed to beer.
Well, yes. I mean, if you look at where Jesus lived, I mean, he lived in basically the Middle East. That was a very dominant beer culture.
Hmm.
And at the time where he lived, like wine would have been really expensive. Like they were drinking wine like around Jesus, but you would have had to be aristocratic basically. And so, yeah, a
Which, as we know,
million
Jesus
percent.
was not. Jesus was not an aristocrat. He was a carpenter.
Jesus was a man of the people, if we want to accept that Jesus actually existed.
Well,
But for the
I do.
purposes,
Again, we're kind of going off the rails, but I do believe that a man named Jesus Christ did exist at one point. All the other stuff, to me, it would be like, if anything, he was like the first Tony Robbins that went around giving motivational speeches,
right?
giving praise, and he got a following. But I mean, I don't deny that a man named Jesus existed. It's the religious aspect of the mythology and the dogma of it is what I do somewhat question. So that being said, let's go back to what we were saying.
Okay. Um, I'm hesitant to bring up my mom because you know her. um, two things.
Well,
Two
if you say
things about
something
her.
embarrassing about your mom, I'll say something embarrassing about mine. Okay.
Oh, I was like before we started recording. I was like feeling your mom for a minute. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
she was fun.
All right.
Your mom was really fun.
Thank you.
Um, anyway, you know what? I don't feel like talking about my mom.
Okay.
Let's talk about the working man's drink and women.
Yes.
So like I said, the Greeks just shit all over beer. The Romans made it worse. Like all these freaking Roman philosophers we worship had terrible things to say about beer. They were for barbarians. Oh, I just
Yeah,
rid of
you just went
myself.
to your photo and there we go. Camera's back.
Beer was something to be drunk by barbarians, which is what the people who inhabited Central Europe at the time, what they called them. I mean, we were talking about like Germanic tribes, Celtic tribes, and they were beer drinkers for the most part, and they were very like quarrelsome and warlike and not as civilized as the ancient Greeks. And they drank a lot of beer, and the Greeks and Romans had very unflattering things to say about them, which still last today, because what do we call people who we think are uncivilized? Barbarians. I mean, it's really wild to think about all the things that still hold true from history, especially the ones that relate to alcohol.
Well, history does repeat itself. I mean, if you don't learn from it, you're doomed to repeat it.
Well, and that's something else that comes up in the book, like these superstitions that that men had about women and brewing are repeated almost verbatim now, like 1500 years later. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not a male bashing book. I'm not trying to male bash, but
Right.
I will say that beer sort of and the reason I wrote this book is that like beer tells the story of women throughout time,
Right.
and it's not a flattering
Well,
story.
let's be honest. I mean, everything these days, if someone wants to feel offended by it, it's going to offend them. So, I mean, yeah, your book's not a male bashing book, and we could say that, but somewhere out there, there's going to be some guy that's going to read it and get butthurt by it and say, "Oh, she's a feminazi," and
That's true.
she's bashing. So I mean, there's really no safe subject anymore. But that's a totally different conversation
That
that we
is
can
true.
have if you want. But I mean, we're talking about alcohol right now, so
Let's
um,
talk more about alcohol. Maybe it will.
yeah. And I see you're
Answer
drinking there. You're drinking You told me that was a bourbon.
that. So I should be drinking beer right now. This is pretty strong. And before we talked, I was taking a virtual mixology class
Okay.
with the international brand ambassador for Net Branca,
Okay.
that Italian DJ Steve. And this guy was hilarious. He was very out of central casting. And yes, this is 2 ounces of mixer's bourbon, a bar spoonful of Fernet Branca, and half an ounce of sweet vermouth. And it's like my 3rd or 4th. So
Okay. Well,
that's
since
where
we're
we,
talking about mixology, we talked about this before we started recording.
yes,
This
let's
is
do
my Costco
it.
$13 bottle of vodka with a 99-cent store peppermint stick that I threw in here a year and a half ago, and I have yet to try it. But in the spirit of tonight's discussion of spirits, I'm going to pour myself a shot, and you might just see me, die on this, but well, let's hope not. So,
I kind of want to get out my camera and record, but
well,
you're
this is
recording
being
already.
recorded, so you can watch this, and I have my little moose
Is
shot
that a
glass that my friend brought me back from Oregon. It says hanging out in Portland.
hi moose?
So there, so it was
So you
just the
don't need a
first. It was the
garnish.
first and least offensive shot glass that I found in my cabinet. I mean, I have other ones that could probably have made some people upset if they saw it. Anyway,
I'm
here goes.
okay. Go.
Hey, that's actually pretty good.
Is it really?
Yeah.
What notes are you getting? But you first have to.
C flat, D minus. I don't know notes. What the,
You,
I'm a layman with this terminology. What's it taste like? It tastes like Christmas to me. All right, how about that? It's very minty, very pepperminty, and it's good and it's strong. I mean, I feel very warm right now from the shot that I took from it. So that's my mixology right there.
That is very appropriate. That's really apt vocabulary.
Okay.
What you didn't say, which is really important to this lesson, is that your vodka, that whole thing. Oh no, that wasn't the plastic handle for $2.99.
No. This is not the plastic. The Murph's 1 gallon handle for $3.99. That's on the bottom shelf of any liquor store in the hood.
From your childhood in New Jersey, right?
Well, from my 20s. My childhood, my teen years was Night Train.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
okay. And then you graduated.
$1.99, and me and my buddies used to go down to Newark, Clinton Avenue Liquors. You walked in, there was 3 walls of bulletproof glass. You gave the money through a drawer, pointed to the bottle that you wanted, and the girl behind the glass reached up, put it in the drawer, slid it out to you.
I know those places.
Yeah. The owner used to stand by the door. He was packing a 38. And he actually told us, we were 16 years old. He actually told us, pull up in front of the store. Don't park around the block. Pull up in front, because if you park around the block and someone tries to jump you, I can't shoot them. So, we called them techs, and every Friday night we were down there at Clinton Avenue Liquors in Newark, getting our, case of Coors Banquet and a couple bottles of Night Train, and that was that. But yeah, I've evolved since then.
To peppermint vodka, which
this was an experiment.
To your credit, was $16 a bottle, right?
No, $13 for the big bottle.
And
Yeah, I mean, I experimented. That's what it really was an experiment. Figured what the
Um,
hell.
well, people do really like the Costco
Yeah.
generic brands. I
Well,
hear that
I got the idea to experiment because I knew people when I lived out in LA that would infuse tequilas. So,
with
you know, the
what?
tequila I've had infused with chili peppers. Uh,
Sounds good.
an acquaintance that I had, he actually had one that was infused with walnuts.
Really?
Yeah, walnut infused tequila. And the thing is, before I moved to California, I couldn't touch tequila because, as with everybody else, I had a bad experience with it. That, you
Right.
know, I started drinking a bottle and I woke up in the Navy. But that was the first one. The
As
second
one
one,
does.
that was the first experience. The second one was when I was in the Navy at my promotion party. My captain started buying tequila shots, and I woke up on the street corner in Japan. Well, I was stationed in Japan, so
Okay.
it wasn't like I got drunk in America and got on a plane. I was
Well,
already
thank you for
there.
clarifying.
I was
Okay.
already there, but somehow I managed to be off base and waking up in a snowbank on the street corner in front of some club on Bar Row in Fusa, Japan, which was like only about 4 blocks from the base, but still, I have no idea how I got there. But I saw pictures, and apparently I had a very good time.
Did you?
Yeah. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, I got out of the Navy in 93, and I had not touched tequila again until I moved to California, and that was 2006.
Okay.
So when I was offered a shot of tequila, I was very hesitant to take it because God only knows where it would have led me that night. But
More plastic bottles potentially. And even if not, tequila.
or on a merchant marine ship in Singapore, who knows? But yeah, so I did begrudgingly have a shot, and it was very nice. And I started drinking tequila again at that point on a very
Okay.
limited basis, and yeah, but like I said, it was infused tequilas that I was getting into,
Mm.
and at that time, tequila was the drink, the drink that was in vogue or chic or whatever you want to call it. There were tequila bars popping up everywhere with infused blends, and like I said, they infuse everything from chili peppers to
Yeah.
walnuts to anything they could throw in a bottle, basically, and let sit for a couple weeks. So that's where I kind of got the inspiration to try that with vodka.
In Japan,
Yeah.
you're saying tequila was trending,
No,
or
no. This was LA. This was LA. This was
in LA?
2007. Yeah, in Japan, I don't remember tequila. Sake and absinthe and ouzo and all that stuff was big when I was over there.
Okay. Not tequila hadn't necessarily.
No, I mean they still thought Cuervo was good stuff back then.
Mm-hmm.
This
So
was
have
before
you?
really the Don Julio and
Okay.
the Cuervo, not the Cuervo, the what's the other Patron and all that really came out.
Do you know what is actually really good if you get the right stuff? It's called Pichuga.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
No.
So most people don't know tequila is a type of mezcal.
Mhm.
Mezcal, you know that awesome. Mezcal is like the parent category.
Right, and the worm is actually in the mezcal bottle, not the tequila bottle. That's what one of the differentiating
The worm.
factors is. The worm, no, because I've seen
Yes.
that where somebody did give me a bottle of mezcal that had the worm in it, but I've seen bottles of tequila that don't. So that's another thing, is that it's a differentiating factor as to what bottle the worm is in.
That is a great point. Yeah, like I'm so old at this point, I want to say like if someone hands you a bottle with the worm, like keep passing it. But yes, the worm is in the mezcal. And well, actually, like I'm being freaking snooty about the worm because I hate bugs and creepy crawlies. But there's a type of mezcal that's like very homemade in Mexico, which has chicken in it, like cooked chicken.
Okay.
I
Is this
think
by any chance made by a Jewish Mexican family?
it's a thing. And I don't know. I don't think any is made commercially, but it's delicious,
Mhm.
actually. And I say cooked chicken because maybe I'm wishful thinking. Like, I don't think it's live chicken. It's not live chicken. And I don't think it's raw chicken.
Right.
But like chicken meat, like a whole
Mhm.
chicken with meat in the bottle.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it is like raw chicken meat. Once it's in the alcohol would probably kill all the parasites.
That is very
So,
true.
and breaking it down chemically, it may actually bring out more flavor from a raw piece of chicken than one that's been cooked. So, I wouldn't necessarily say it's cooked chicken, but it's not going to make you sick. Is really what the important thing is.
Thank you. Actually, that's 1,000% right. And I feel very ethnocentric in treating it as silly. And it does, like, the flavor of the chicken, like, gives like a umami
Hmm.
and a depth to the tequila or to the mezcal.
Right.
And it's really good.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
can try it, do it.
that's something that a lot of people don't realize is that like cooking is basically chemistry, and just because we know how something is prepared doesn't mean it's necessarily prepared correctly to get the
Right.
most flavor out of it.
Well, like
So,
cryovacking
mhm,
stuff
right,
is, freezing it and then putting it in boiling water,
right.
and there you go.
Well, it's like going back to a more to something that hits a little closer to home. Your grandmother, my aunt Ida, and her pinwheel cookies. What made them so good? And
Correct.
I think my brother, no, I think my brother Jeffrey actually figured it out. It was the butter, because we're so used to taking frozen butter and melting it, where she just left it in a dish on the counter, didn't refrigerate it. So it melted differently, different, you know what I'm saying? It was
Yeah.
softer, and something about refrigerating it changes the chemical composition and the
Hmm.
taste of it. Whereas she just left it out on the counter, and when she'd use it, it was already there. So that's what the difference in taste is. Also, ingredients and things. I've noticed things over the years have stopped tasting the same as what we remember them, and it's because they stopped using saturated fats and things, and
Hmm.
prepared foods, especially that we used to like love, that don't taste the same now that we're older. It's not that our taste buds changed; it's that they changed the method of. It's like people say they don't taste the difference between sugar cane Coke and corn syrup Coke. I totally
Right.
taste the difference.
Uh-huh. You do.
So I mean, but they say, oh, it's a sweetener no matter what. But yeah, so I don't know where we went with that one, but
Well, you're 1,000% right. And I will just say this, and then we can get back to alcohol if you want. The mixology virtual class I just came from before this, I think I mentioned at the beginning, it was like this. We made different types of Manhattans
right.
with Fernet Branca. And the brand ambassador leading the class is in Italy. He was like central casting, like 40-year-old Italian
Okay.
dude. He was hilarious. And he was talking about how he would always go to his grandmother's house, and we all thought he was going to talk about like this amazing dish, whatever. He was like, for green beans.
Yeah.
And he talked us through every single ingredient that she cooked her green beans with, this like old Italian nonna, right? Nonna. Um, and he said she used fresh butter
Hmm.
that was not, I don't think he specifically said like not frozen or not refrigerated, but
Right.
fresh. Like
Yeah.
that's what he meant. And so I think you're spot on.
Well, it's not me. Like I said, I got to give credit where credit is due, and it was my brother Jeffrey that said, it was the butter, and I tend to believe him,
The
because mostly if I
butter.
don't, he's just going to argue with me anyway and take credit for it and tell me that I'm stealing his material. So I'm giving him credit where credit is due. So Jeffrey, if you do watch
Hi,
this and
Jeffrey.
you are listening, see, I do not try to hog the credit. Anyway, I'm gonna switch gears back to things though. I'm curious how you got into specializing in reporting on alcohol. You said you were in TV, and I remember this because my mother would send me things when she did see you. Because let's be honest, we weren't really that close growing up because of distance and other family things, personality clashes, but um, which we will not get into. But she would always, when she saw you, she would send me like clips of when you did the news on TV and all that. So, how do you go from that journalism
Hmm.
to alcohol?
It takes a weirdo, I think.
Especially since growing up, I don't remember anything more than a bottle of Manischewitz being on any of the tables that we actually had family dinners at.
That, you're the first interview I'm doing with a family member, and this is so awesome because I can say to you, like, that is totally right. I can't speak to your family, but like, we didn't really drink in
No,
my
we did not
family.
either. We did not either. My dad tried to be like posh one weekend and said, "Oh, Sheila, we're gonna have Bloody Marys on Sunday for brunch." Brunch being like a bagel that he went out and bought one for himself and some salami. But yeah, that lasted one weekend when he drank a Bloody Mary and damn near puked his guts out because we were not drinkers. We were not. We were not of that crowd that the Friday night cocktail hours and all that. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take over your response.
Not at all. And I hope I don't offend anybody when I say like that Friday night cocktail or whatever, however you described it exactly, like feels very Protestant to me. Like,
Yeah,
and I say that because like Jews are not really known to be drinkers, right?
right.
Generally. And that's like a whole nother topic. I can talk about Jews and beer forever. And
Hmm.
I love it. But point is, right. So like we didn't really drink much when I was growing up. But we had a sailboat, as you know,
Yeah.
and we did go out to dinner like once or twice a week. And on those occasions, my dad would enjoy a Budweiser, sometimes in the can, sometimes on draft. And I'm not sure what got me into doing this. Maybe I was like a little hoodlum from birth. I don't know. Um, but I always, I took a sip. Like
Hmm.
every time the Budweiser came out, I was having a sip and my dad would indulge me. And it got to be like I'd like see how many I could get away with until my
Right.
mom got pissed.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just always had a taste for beer, right?
Hmm.
So I was a TV reporter after grad school, which is what I always wanted to do. And I was always very interested in reporting about economic growth. And so I moved to the Philly area because I got a TV job on the Comcast station. And then I stopped doing TV in 2005 and started writing freelance print, web, producing documentaries, and working for my biggest client, who was the Philly Tourism Bureau.
Okay.
In 2005, what I believed and believe to this day is that Philly was the best craft beer city on the East Coast at that time. And of course, it doesn't get the credit because nobody ever gives Philly credit for anything,
Right.
really. But
Yeah, just the cradle of democracy in this country and where our where our constitution was written. Yeah, that doesn't matter. They just think of Rocky.
they just think of Rocky, literally, and cheesesteaks. That's it.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, don't discount a good cheesesteak.
no, you're right. But Philly's far more than that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But only people
So
in this region know that.
they do or don't.
Yeah.
Wait, well, you've come down. We've had
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
in Philly, and I
Oh no,
appreciate you wanting to do that.
I don't have any bad things to say about Philadelphia. I've always had fun there. Going back years, my friends and I we would go for the St. Patrick's Day pub crawls in Philly. Get a hotel room down by the water, and then jump on the bus and do the pub crawls, because most of my friends they graduated college from Westchester, as did my brother, but that was way before I was old enough to drink. So they would go, meet up with their college friends, and I'd tag along. And yeah, I always had fun in Philly.
I didn't know that about the Westchester thing.
Yeah.
So Philly was what a lot of people don't recognize, and thank you for saying good things about Philadelphia. Philly was really where it was at in 2005 when it came to beer. And that's when I was transitioning from TV to freelancing and working for the Tourism Bureau. A big part of my job was to like go out into the counties and into the city and tell them what was important to promote. And I was like, there are these things called gastropubs and these things called microbreweries, and they're really getting popular. And I think they're drawing and can continue to draw like nice visitation. They'll help the economy. They're very collaborative, eco-friendly, blah, 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 blah. So the more I wrote about them for the Tourism Bureau, the more I realized that like, hey, this really fits with what I like to promote. I've always liked beer. I drank craft beer in college in New England, which back then we were still calling microbrew. And because I had a boyfriend with a really good fake ID, he turned me onto that. And yeah, so like right around 2005, I made a decision that I was going to focus on beer, and that's what I've done.
Well, it's funny because what you just said actually circles back to what we started this entire conversation off with, was that the microbrews and all that, they were not getting the attention that wineries, coffee shops, and all that were getting. And I don't think it was just a location thing where Philly was, yes, a lot of people don't realize how happening a place Philly really is, but you also had the music industry, which in prior to that, prior to the 2000s, was really based out of the West Coast with Seattle, the Seattle sound and the Seattle grunge and all that. So I mean, I know that this is kind of feels like it's all over the place, this conversation, but these things do tie in, because Seattle out of nowhere became the happening place. And it seemed like everything that came out of Seattle was cool, regardless of where it originated or not. But if it had Seattle attached to it, because of music and, because coffee from Seattle was the big thing. Then it was, well, first it was the music because of bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden and all that, the Seattle grunge sound. But with that came the coffee houses. It even in my world, it integrated into my world with corporate training things, because I remember having to go to classes that were being based off of a fish market in Seattle, how they do business.
Really?
Yeah, this was a big
Pike
thing in the
Place.
2000s. It was the Pike Place Fish Market.
Yeah.
Became like the corporate poster child for how to run a business, how to have fun at work. All right, because they would show, literally, I used to have to go, when I worked at a pharmaceutical company, I used to have to go to classes to be taught how to have fun at work. and it got very frustrating because I wasn't getting my work done. And I'd have to go and watch these videos of guys throwing fish at each other in Seattle. I know it sounds ridiculous, but finally, one of these classes I got thrown out of because the instructor said, "Well, how do you see this?" They said, "Craig, how do you see what's going on in the video?" I said, "It's a complete and total waste of my time." And it's actually, I said this, it's actually pissing me off that I'm sitting here having to take classes on how to have fun at work, because this is work. It's not fun time, it's work. And the longer I sit in this class, the more my work is piling up. So you want me to tell you how I want to make my work environment better? Stop making me take these goddamn classes. Let me do my work. They frowned on that, threw me out of the class.
Did they?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What industry were you in?
I was in audio visual, as I am also to this day, but it was because they were trying to incorporate every work, what's the word I'm thinking of? every job into this same culture, this
Mm,
fun at work culture. Like it was called emotional energy.
okay.
All right. They needed to increase the emotional energy of the entire workplace, regardless of what your job was, whether you were a CEO or a janitor. Everybody had to take these classes to increase your emotional energy to get you excited about coming into work. And to
Mm-hmm.
make it, they felt that if you were having fun, you were more productive. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
I found if you were having fun, and I like to have fun, but I also know that work needs to get done. And if I get my work done in a quick and timely manner, that leaves me more time to have fun. But they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you should incorporate games into your daily activities and your daily interactions with people. It's like, I'm coming in here to set up your meeting. I'm setting up your PowerPoint so that you can have your meeting. Well, you want to play checkers first? I mean, seriously. So I mean, this is just it was just another one of those corporate ideologies that
Mm-hmm.
someone came up with because they were looking to make a name for themselves, and they got a couple people to listen to them and think it was a good idea. But yeah, I mean, I had to again going back to like Philadelphia's role in being an, for lack of a better word, influencer on things like microbrews or whatnot.
Ah, influencer. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though, is
Yes,
because
I
that's really what people get influenced by things they see, and because Seattle was America's sweetheart for that period of time, even companies on the East Coast started saying that their products are made in Seattle,
yeah.
to get higher sales.
You know, Philly has never worked up to that cachet.
No, and
Like,
they won't because Philly is also considered more of a working class town.
yes.
Again, look at what comes out of Philly, what people know it as Rocky. The Fresh Prince was probably the I guess the most affluent character to ever come from Philadelphia. If you look at
And he was poor when he left Philadelphia,
right,
and that's why he left. He
right,
wasn't rich until he got to LA
exactly.
or
So
Bel.
between him and Rocky, what other influences does Philadelphia have that people know about? All right. I mean, yeah, we could go into the history of Philadelphia, how basically that's where this country began. But nobody, that's not sexy enough. Democracy is just not a sexy thing.
Um, yeah, Philly has worked really hard and really successfully to some extent to change its reputation from being just that, but it endures.
Right.
It still hasn't changed enough.
Yeah.
And shit, I mean, they've been at it since the 90s, and here we are still talking about Rocky. So,
Right. Well, he keeps
uh,
making movies.
yeah,
He's, Stallone, stop making movies. Maybe Philly will have a chance to be something more.
um, yeah, and the other thing we're known for is throwing snowballs at Santa Claus and like, get over it.
Climbing greasy poles when you're a football team. Well, that's another thing Philly's known for is having. I think they were the first NFL stadium to have a jail in the basement.
Yes.
Which that to me is hilarious because I would have thought for sure it would have been Jersey.
Well, we're not so far away.
Right, but I mean,
A lot of Philly fans are actually from Jersey. I mean,
Right.
I'm sitting in Jersey right now.
Yeah.
I can see Philadelphia from my
Right.
house.
Yeah,
to
no,
quote
I've
the
been to
great
your
Sarah
house.
Palin.
Yeah.
And because you've been.
Yeah.
Yes, you have been to my house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Remember when we saw the Who? A couple years ago?
yes, we did. That was awesome.
Yeah. But
Crap, well, I keep taking the conversation far away from where you want it to go.
well, no, I never really look. I never had a format or anything for this. This is just conversation. So, whatever route it goes, it goes. I'm not one of these rigid, clipboard holding bullet point stick to interviewers because to me, that's boring. I just letting the conversation go where it's going to go.
I could tell that about you.
So, but yeah, I mean that's there were some questions that I was going to ask, and I think I've already asked the big ones that I wanted to.
I was like,
no.
I'm crap. If you still want to ask me anything, I guess we should do it. But yeah,
well, I'm trying to think.
or
of
we
what
could
else.
just bullshit.
Well, we could do that too. I mean, what other well, I mean, another, if we're going to go into like the relevant topics of what's going on now, I mean, marijuana was finally legalized here in New Jersey, and I'm
Mm.
not ashamed to say it. I've been taking full advantage of that legalization. I mean, I've never thought that it was the evil drug that it was made out to be.
Um,
And
I
is there
agree.
a marijuana infused beer?
Uh, Technically, that is still illegal because to combine alcohol and marijuana is still like in most places very verboten, but there are a lot of hops infused. Well, there are a lot of THC infused non-alcoholic beers.
Okay.
There are like hoppy THC beverages, but non-alcoholic. And yeah, there are some that cross over, but like not a
Right.
lot. And I'm here to tell you, like, hemp doesn't taste very good.
Yeah.
Like, great, I get it if you want to make like a hemp fucking, I don't know, sparkling water.
Hmm.
Why?
Well, I mean, it tastes okay in
Don't
cookies.
bother.
Tastes okay in baked goods.
But it doesn't. Like, I don't know. And in baked goods, yes, like you have all that other yummy
Right.
brownie stuff or
Mhm.
whatever to like mask the flavor. But if you're drinking sparkling, like CBD sparkling water and hoppy CBD sparkling water,
Yeah, I could
I don't
imagine
know.
it's probably
Yuck.
not that good.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, but yes, in New Jersey it has been legalized, but these people are fucking around in Trenton and not agreeing on what it takes to actually create a system for how it's going to work, and so it's
I
taking a
think
long
it's a
time.
little, I think, to me it's these I don't even know what to call these people, but these whack jobs that are trying to get other things attached to it. Like I heard
Mm,
one of the reasons why they haven't been able to figure this out is because you have one um I don't even want to say congressman, but one politician that's trying to figure out a way to tack on magic mushrooms to the
mm,
marijuana bill and all this. It's like it wouldn't be that difficult to implement the things to make this work. I mean, Colorado did it, and now with the talk out of Washington that they're finally going to decriminalize it federally, the banks are going to be going nuts because now they'll finally get that money.
right.
So I mean, but New Jersey is a state that, for lack of a better thing, and again, this is something that my brother says all the time, we could fuck up a wet dream. I mean, New
Yeah,
Jersey can fuck up a wet dream. So who knows what's going to happen? But as long as, but to me, the more important thing is now it's freeing up police to not have to worry about picking up kids on the street with a dime bag, and waste their time sitting around the precinct writing out
right.
reports over, this kid that they picked up on the corner of Broad and Market in Newark selling dime bags,
It's true.
you know.
It's
And,
true.
and I know
There.
a lot of cops that are actually like, yeah, no, this was good for us because
Mhm.
now we can actually focus on fighting real crime.
Yes,
So
I do support that. I never thought I would see it in my lifetime, and I support it. And it definitely makes it easier for me to walk around Center City, Philly on the street while I'm heading to some sort of event and
right, with
puff.
your little vape pen, I know I've seen him. I've actually taken a hit off your vape pen, but and hey,
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it.
that's the most directly honest I've been about that. And yeah, like
Uh,
shoot, I I mean, it's funny to me often, myself aside, like how often I'm in public places, even like she places like in Rittenhouse Square and
right.
whatever in Philly, where I do get like I hit a wall.
Mm-hmm.
of pot scent.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I have no point other than that I'm a
Well, what used to
degenerate and find that
nah,
hilarious.
what used to crack me up though, and I've seen this less and less over the years, and is what I when you used to go to a concert and you used to see the smoke rising from the beginning of the concert to like halfway through, where you, if you're up high enough, you can't even see the stage because of the pot cloud. And but over the past, I'd say 10 years, I think kids have fallen out of love with marijuana at
Mhm.
concerts.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's because maybe the venues are getting stricter on their smoking regulations, but I mean, I remember, back in the 90s, 80s and 90s when you weren't allowed to technically smoke inside an arena, but still by halfway through the concert, you were high as a kite, whether you wanted to be or not, because
Yeah.
that cloud. So I mean, and now I don't know. They say that legalization of it is going to be bad, but judging from that being the litmus test, if you will, I think it's actually not going to be, because kids aren't. If anything, when we go to concerts, it's people our age that are smoking the weed.
That's true.
You know,
Although I have to ask this, do you think that it's possible that we're just not sensing the smoke anymore because the kids are ingesting THC in different ways that don't involve smoke, even if it's vaping, but like all the gummies and the
that's a good possibility, but we also got to remember though that I think kids are more into the synthetic shishi things that we didn't have when we were their age. Like we didn't have the things like the ecstasy and all that stuff.
mm,
We had weed. Like I don't remember ever hearing about things like crystal meth or anything
mm-mm,
until I was already in my 30s. Late
mm-hmm.
30s. When we were kids, it was, Kenny has a dime bag, let's go hang out in his basement. And then when we hit our 20s, it was, well, Kenny's buddy Jerome has an 8 ball, let's go do some lines. And some people kept doing it, some people didn't. But I mean, now they have all these synthetics that, and especially since you can make these yourself. Crystal
Yeah.
meth is something you can make. Look, I live in a trailer park, there's probably someone 3 trailers down, with a cookhouse that I don't know about. But
Okay.
no,
Right.
I'm just kidding. I mean, my trailer park's upscale. We import our meth. We don't cook it here, we import it. um
Fair.
no, but with all these designer drugs and all that, so I think marijuana to these kids is just like, and I don't think they know how to smoke it. They don't know how to enjoy it either. And this was something I learned in
Mm,
California
mhm.
with, a relative that, who was at the time still a teenager. Is like, he'd be like, yeah, we're gonna go smoke pot, we're gonna go to a thrash metal show, and we're gonna get, mosh pits and all that. It's like, no, that's not how. Marijuana was something you smoked, you sat down in the basement with a guitar and you just mellowed out, listened to Pink Floyd. It was a mellow drug. It wasn't a drug that got you amped up to go out and fight. And again, the only thing to me that was a gateway for it was Twinkies. All right, that was marijuana to me was a gateway to diabetes, if anything. Because when I'd smoke, all I want to do is just find as much junk food as humanly possible and ingest it. So, so again, I
I
don't
can
think kids know how to do it anymore. Or so.
um all of the philosophy aside,
Mhm.
I can bring this conversation back to butter
Okay.
by saying that I have this weird metabolism, or I don't know, whatever it is, like I don't get munchies
Hmm.
when I smoke. Never have, except for like on the very rare occasion, I don't know what to attribute it to, but I am famous among my circle of friends for like senior year of college or something, eating my way through every single thing in my friend's parents' house,
Hmm.
including a stick of butter.
Wow, that is hardcore. Maybe that's why. Maybe that butter incident is what changed your whole chemical balance.
Maybe, but I do love butter.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually, yeah.
I remember one time getting so high down the shore that in the middle of the night, me and my friends, we were looking for anything to barbecue. We were taking frozen burritos out of the refrigerator and throwing them onto the barbecue grill. Didn't
Yeah.
really work out that well. They kind of fell apart and wound up in the grill more so than in our mouths. But yeah,
And now I'm thinking about my very ghetto pasta behind me that I'm going to put very many different kinds of shredded government cheese in. And I'm
hmm
sorry, like if you can edit that out if that's like a Gen X,
no,
not
that's
PC thing to say anymore,
no.
because
Actually,
I
I'm
don't even
curious.
know.
I'm curious. Is it only going to be pasta and cheese, or are you going to like get creative with it? Because that's the other thing. I would get creative with like my ramen. Like
Like
that
how?
that that 99 cents like that ramen that you buy for like 16 for $1. I
Right?
would get creative with them and like cut up sausage or, for lack of anything else, spam.
Sure.
Fry that up, throw that in there with some spices and whatnot. I mean, I took the ramen making seriously. So is this mac and cheese that you speak of, which is kind of making me hungry now too? Is that going to be just straight up mac and cheese, or are you going to get creative and throw some proteins in there too?
No, like no fancy mushrooms, nothing. Just whatever cheese I can find, like stuck to the bottom of my cheese drawer.
hmm
I stole my tenant's box of elbow macaroni because actually, this is funny. I only had angel hair pasta, so I was like, "Oh, that's
Hey,
so bougie."
any port in a storm.
I know, right? Like on one
Any port in
hand,
a storm.
ew. On second hand, like I have angel hair.
hmm
Yeah, no.
Any port in
Um,
a storm.
it's gonna be delicious.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna probably pour bourbon all over it just because.
Man,
But
maybe
it's
saute
10-year
it.
Michter's bourbon, so
Maybe
you know,
saute it in a
fancy.
little bourbon.
Actually, actually, that's no joke. Like you could get like the crystallized sugars and stuff.
hmm
That'd be a great way to get rid of cheap bourbon too. Although you might get like too many of
Well,
the.
look, I cook. That's the other thing is I cook with alcohol a lot, even
You do?
especially beer. Oh yeah, like St. Patrick's Day is coming up. I'm going to be hitting the liquor store buying a 6 pack of cheap beer to cook a corned beef in
Mm.
to throw a corned beef on my crock pot for 8 hours in. But I mean, I've
Oh,
made for Thanksgiving. I made Fireball pumpkin pies,
really?
Fireball whiskey. Oh yeah, fan favorite at our Thanksgiving dinner. Fan favorite.
Mm.
I get requests for the Fireball pumpkin pie.
Have you made any desserts with your apple jack?
Not yet. I haven't experimented with that yet. Um, I have seen recipes though. I have. I've just
Okay.
been kind of lazy about doing it because see the thing is that I'm trying not to eat those sorts of things on a regular basis. I've actually, because of the pandemic and all that, I actually have been finding myself trying to eat healthier. So I do go and like every day I try to have a salad for lunch. It doesn't always work out that way, but I do make my pilgrimages on the weekends to the farmers market to get salad stuff. But just because of the fact that I'm not as active, because I mean, this room that I'm doing this recording, this is my office.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I sit here for 8 hours with 3 computers, and I just you know, the most exercise I'm getting is doing this, going from computer to computer to answer emails or monitor something. So it's not like when I was going to the office where I was logging at least a mile and a half a day just walking
Okay.
room to room.
Uh-huh.
So the desserts and whatnot I've kind of like pulled back on keeping them in
Okay.
the house and whatnot for that reason. But it does make for very unpleasant times when I've been hitting my marijuana stash, and I'm looking for anything to munch on.
Any port in a storm.
Any port in a storm, man. Any port in a storm. Cucumbers are just as good as Twinkies. Pickles are just as good as devil dogs.
You can convince yourself of that. It is
Oh yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have
Sometimes
to
you
for the
have
greater
to.
good.
Yep.
But,
You work with
anyway,
what you
looks like we've
got.
been going for about an hour and how long have we been talking? Just and I only asked that because there is a limit on the Zoom
Yeah. So we're probably at the end or close to it.
Yeah, but
So will
you
you
know,
bring me back again to talk about like what
absolutely.
you
When your book,
actually wanted to talk to me about?
well, I just wanted to talk, and that's really what my show is about. But I mean, I'm going to extend the
Mwah.
invitation to you for when your book does come out. If you want to, and I don't know how much press this is going to get you, but if you want to talk about that and plug it, you're more than welcome anytime you want to do this. Let me know because I love doing this shit. I mean, this is fun for me.
Craig, this is so much fun for
And I mean, I
me,
don't know if you could
especially
see
because
this,
I
but
get to hang out with you.
and I don't know if you could see it. You can't see this, but like I even have the green screen here because I've been doing comedy like videos that I've been posting on YouTube and whatnot using the backdrop. And I mean, I invested in some editing software for video and all that. Because this is, I went back to college for this shit. Back
Mm-hmm.
when I lived in LA, I went back to college for radio broadcasting and video editing. So now I'm finally getting off my ass and putting that to some kind of usage.
So glad.
But yeah, and I mean, also the lack of ability to go out and perform stand up in clubs. So I mean, this is how I do. I write. I do these videos. But anyway, yeah. So again, anytime you want, just let me know. We'll do another call.
Okay.
All right.
That sounds awesome. And once we get vaccinated, come down here and we'll sit on my basement floor and we'll drink all the Laird's apple brandy
Okay.
that we can until we pass out.
You got it. That's a deal. All right,
Mwah.
Tara. Thanks a lot. And
Love
I'll
ya.
talk to you again soon. Love you too.
Bye.
Bye bye. Okay, so to everybody out there that's watching this, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you found this as enjoyable to watch as I found it to be a part of. And you know, thanks for your support and watching my stupidity. Have a great night, America, or the world, wherever you're watching from.